hips.
Yeah, so I want to show the hip. If you imagine your knuckles, right? Your knuckle, you can see the joint right there.
Yep.
Right? The hip, look at this picture. There's a ton of muscle in the front and ton of muscle in the back, and then the hip is what we call a deep joint.
Interesting.
Okay? So the joint is moved by all these muscles. So if any of these big muscles get tight and short, that will totally impinge and affect how you move the hip.
In terms of the golf swing?
In terms of the golf swing, in terms of even walking.
Okay.
People don't realize, like, this gets tight and they keep walking and then they get back issues, as we covered last week.
Right.
Right? So this is to emphasize the hip is sitting deep in here, but there's all these muscles in front of it. So if the muscles get tight, then the hip won't work as well.
Are there preventative exercises, stretches to do? I've heard things like the walk, you get down like this to stretch them out, you get like that. And
so there, if you follow me on Twitter, I will post exercises that Dave Phillips, actually from TPI, did really good on how to stretch this out in the front and back.
Okay.
That will help a lot of people. So for young people, this is the main issue.
Okay.
Right? As you get older, though, if you get a hip replacement.
I've heard a lot of hip replacement. Jack Nicklaus has had hip replacement.
Correct. Many players have. Curtis Strange. So this is typically what happens. This is an arthritic hip.
Okay.
So this joint here should be, like a glass table surface.
Okay.
There should be gliding, no restriction, no friction. As this gets worn out, as you can see here, it starts grinding, okay? And this is a really beautiful 3D picture of what a hip looks like. It should be completely polished, like a putting green on Augusta. Oh. This looks like an aerated putting green.
That's some Muni somewhere. That's not Augusta.
That's right. So what happens with this, Damon? The problem with this is, as we get older and we start developing this, even if you don't have pain, you will notice the joint gets stiff.
Okay.
So in this hip, you should be able to do this, move it backwards, right?
Yep.
Turn it in and turn it out, and then do it all together. This is called circumduction. Okay. So this is a normal range of movement with the hip.
Okay.
When you can't do this and you can't turn or you can't bend, then it really affects your golf swing.
And I imagine it affects your posture and even your setup as we bring in Travis Fulton, who's dutifully doing the exercises that Dr. R has laid out. Excellent work by you. What are we going to learn here? What do you see from the doctor that can help us at home?
Yeah, I love working with the doc because of the description, right, and us working together. I think it's so important for our viewers at home because we don't want to hurt people. And, when you're limited in your hips, in particular here, we're going to talk about the lead hip here in a second, but real quick on the trail hip, we have a hard time loading up and we get kind of swaying.
Yeah, they can't turn. A lot of people, they straighten out the knee to get to the other side. Yeah.
So, the trail foot, you can flare it out some. Don't be afraid to flare it out. I think we kind of got in a little bit of habit of, taking the foot and pinching it in. Flare it out a bit. That'll open up the hip a ton. And then from there, if you want to even drop it back. Right? If you want to turn the hip back, that'll kind of help even free up things a bit.
It almost looks like you've already turned.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Now, the lead hip, right? We know we've got to get out of the way with the lead hip. So, of course, we know it helps to flare out the front foot a bit, but we really have to recruit, Doc, more, I think, from the upper body, right? Yeah. And speed from the arms and hands. And I like this drill here. I'm going to take a seat here for a second. And if I was just to take a seat, this really locks out my lower body.
Yeah, locks up your hip.
So this is a bit of an exaggeration, but if I was to create speed here, I can recruit a little bit here from my upper body, but I'm having to use my arms and hands, right? And notice where the club exits. It exits up over the lead shoulder. If I was sitting here, a lot of times when people are restricted here, they'll kind of dive across this way.
Yeah, you see them kind of going across.
And you wouldn't do that in the chair.
Yeah.
So let the arms create the speed and then really rehinge up over the left shoulder, right? So I'm restricted. And you can see how I'm just turning and letting my arms rehinge up over my left shoulder. Also notice my right knee when I do that. When I get in my chair, you see how I kind of brace my knee, kind of kicks in a little bit? I kind of like that if you're restricted. Let the knee kick in just a touch, and then from there, let this create some speed up over the left shoulder. I'm tired. I'm going to pass it back to you guys.
What about the posture? When people when they can't hinge here, and they kind of go like this.
Yeah, that's a big one for me, and I imagine a lot of folks.
Yeah.
Adam Scott has perfect posture. Justin Rose, perfect posture.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Well, but they also have good hips.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Okay,
so as you get tighter and arthritic, instead of doing this, you kind of get here, and then you kind of get this to get to the ball.
Right, and you kind of have to, right? Because you don't have that hip hinge.
Okay.
right? We can't hinge from the hips where the pelvis really pushes back. So probably we're going to be a little bit more this way, where the belt buckle is going to sit a little more level and not so much on an angle.
Yeah.
And then you're probably going to have to recruit a bit from the knee bend. And I think when you do that, it's okay to be here, right? We can play golf from here. We don't have to be like this, like Adam Scott. We can be here, probably going to scoot in a little bit. The shaft's probably going to be a bit more upright, maybe a little bit like Bryson DeChambeau. I think that's kind of an image here where we kind of get in this way like that. So if you're that person, you feel more comfortable here and you can't so much get here, go ahead and scoot in just a touch. Make sure you got a long enough golf club, and the lie angle probably needs to be a touch more upright. So there's things you can do at address. There's things that you can do to create speed and play this game at a high level, even without the rotation of the hip.